Imagine yourself in Iceland, around the year 980. There are no cities, only turf farms nestled in the cold. The sun barely shines, but the fire in the main hall keeps life alive. You are not a slave, nor the wife of a great chieftain. You marry a bondi, a free farmer, hardworking and respected, the typical man of the Icelandic Viking age. Faith is still pagan, full of gods and omens, but a rumor is spreading. Soon the Þing, the great assembly of the people, will decide to bring Christianity. And it is in this time of transition, between ancient rites and new laws, that your story begins. What if you married a Viking? Chapter 1. Courtship and Choice. Forget candlelit romantic dinners. In 10th century Iceland, marriage was a contract between families and love. If it happened to show up, was almost a bonus. You might have had the right to give your opinion, but in practice, it was parents and relatives who did the negotiating. The engagement was sealed before witnesses and, of course, plenty of barley beer at the local feasts. Where would you meet someone? There were no busy streets or urban taverns. Iceland had no cities. Encounters happened at assemblies, the famous wing, or within neighborhood networks, where everyone knew everyone else's life. The most important thing wasn't whether your suitor made your heart race, but whether he brought land, cattle, and prestige to strengthen your family. Chapter 2. Marriage, Dowry, and Contracts. Marriage wasn't just a ceremony, it was a legal contract. Your family provided the dowry, land, livestock, valuable objects. The groom, in turn, had to pay the mundr, a kind of compensation to your family for the marriage. And on the morning after the wedding night, came the surprise, the morgungifu, the morning gift. That was yours alone. It could be jewelry, a few heads of cattle, or even a piece of land. In a world where nearly everything revolved around men, the morgungifu was a tangible form of female autonomy. Nothing was written on paper. Contracts were oral, made in front of witnesses, but they carried the full weight of law. Dowry, mundr, and morgungifu defined the future, including in the case of divorce. Because yes, separation didn't mean losing everything. Chapter 3. Life at Home. Married life began in a turf longhouse, with green walls on the outside and dark ones inside. The heart of the home was a central fire, always burning, that warmed, lit, and gathered everyone together. But it wasn't just you and your husband. Under the same roof could live parents, married siblings, children's. A true household community. Everyone had clearly defined roles. Your husband tended to the livestock, fishing, and fields. You were the guardian of dairying, weaving, and food preservation, vital tasks. Since wool cloth, called VML, was valuable enough to serve as currency. Despite these divisions, important decisions were discussed together, and when conflicts arose, they weren't settled with backyard fights. They were taken to the Þing, the great Icelandic assembly. To live in such a home was to live in a balance between cooperation and tension. The house wasn't just a shelter. It was a microcosm of Viking society itself. Chapter 4. Hygiene, Clothing, and Beauty. If you picture your Viking husband as filthy, disheveled, and smelling like a goat, forget it. Archaeology tells a different story. In his pouch, he carried tweezers, an ear pick, a skin scraper, and even a bone comb. Yes, vanity was serious business. Hair and beards were trimmed with care, and simple perfumes also existed. Day to day, he wore wool and linen clothing fastened with brooches. But during ceremonies, heavy cloaks, necklaces, and bracelets would gleam. Baths? That depended on the weather. In Iceland, where the cold cuts the skin, hot springs were gathering places and spots for relaxation, an ancient version of the spa. Chapter 5. Affection, Jealousy, and Conflicts. Public displays of affection, very discreet. Among the Vikings, honor mattered far more than kisses or hugs. Now if your husband humiliated you in public, for example, by slapping you in front of witnesses. That wasn't just rudeness. It could be grounds for divorce. But nothing was settled in the heat of the moment. Marital disputes involved relatives and often required the mediation of elders. And if the conflict escalated, it ended up at the Þing, the Great Icelandic Assembly, where reputations were judged and sentences decided. In a Viking marriage, love could exist, but it was always under the watchful eyes of the community. Chapter 6. Polygamy, Divorce and Inheritance. In Viking Iceland, marriage was officially monogamous. But among the elite, it wasn't unusual for a frilla, a concubine, to appear, which, needless to say, could spark tensions worthy of a saga. The most surprising part? Both men and women could file for divorce. There were legal formulas. The reasons had to be spoken aloud, in specific spots within the house or community, and always in front of witnesses. Grounds varied: impotence, abandonment, public violence, breach of contract. Every word spoken in these formulas was like a key that opened or closed destinies. And in the end came the division. The dowry returned to the wife, the mourning gift remained with her, and the rest of the property was redistributed according to law. Inheritance? Sons had priority, but daughters also inherited, sometimes in smaller shares. A widow could secure rights too, as long as heirs and contracts were in order. In short, marriage among Vikings was both a bond of affection and family, and a legal battlefield, where reputation and wealth were always at stake. Chapter 7. Children and Education. Having children wasn't just a matter of affection, it was a matter of survival. More hands meant more work on the farm, more alliances between families, and, of course, the continuation of the family name. But children didn't always grow up only at home. The practice of fosterage, sending a child to be raised by another family, was common and didn't break blood ties. On the contrary, it was an honor for the family who received the child and a powerful bond between clans. Education didn't come from schools, but from daily life. Girls learned to manage dairying, weave wool, handle food stores, and practice hospitality. Boys went into livestock, fishing, navigation, and even listening to the intricate oral laws. Each child was, in truth, an investment in the future of the community, and each lesson, a piece of tradition being carried forward. Chapter 8. Myth versus Reality. Myth number 1. Vikings were all filthy and disheveled. Reality? Combs, tweezers, and even ear picks show that grooming was taken seriously. Myth number 2. Viking marriage was nothing but abduction. Reality? There were family negotiations, contracts, dowries, and even a legal path to divorce. Myth number 3. All Vikings stayed pagan until the end. Reality? In Iceland, in the year 999, the Þing, the Great Assembly, officially decided to adopt Christianity by law. Between fantasy and truth, the real lives of these couples were far more complex and surprising than the legends make them seem. Chapter 9. Then versus now. In 10th century Iceland, marriage was a pact between families. Dowry, oral contracts, and customary laws defined every detail of life together. Today, in the same country, marriage is a personal choice, civil or religious, in one of the most gender-equal societies in the world. It's as if between you and that turf farm lay not just 1,000 years of history, but an entire revolution in the way people love, choose, and live as a couple. Conclusion. So, marrying an Icelandic Viking around the year 1000 came with its greens and reds. 3 greens. You'd have rights over your dowry and mourning gift. You could legally seek a divorce. And you'd live surrounded by a strong network of kin, hospitality, and alliances. 3 reds. Your honor would always be under public scrutiny. Your family would have heavy influence over your choices. And among the elite, the risk of concubinage added extra tensions. In the end, it was a life of intense community, but also of constant vigilance. If you want to know what it would be like to be the wife of a man from a completely different culture and time, Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to turn on notifications.